it comes back to, again, the same logic really of this is something that's not only true, that needs to be fought for, a truth that needs to be fought for. It's a truth that is being called, it's a kind of an immorality that's being called moral. And there's something about that hypocritical reversal, the kind of sense of what Isaiah says of, when darkness is called light and light is called darkness. Woe to you, those who call, good bad, bad good, take sweet for bitter and bitter for sweet. That's what the prophets call us to do. And there's a prophetic element to preaching that has to be there. Otherwise, preaching becomes almost pointless, just going through the motions. Yeah, encourage the brethren again for another week, but you need to challenge them, to challenge those things around them as well, and especially to speak into those issues. So because the evangelical pulpit had become myopically narrow for many years and said, well, we can only really talk about these things, it's almost unfaithful of us to not do it. And so I understand why they get into their head and go, we can't get into abortion, because then we'd have to talk about climate change, and then we'd have to talk about poverty relief in general and things like that. So, well, I mean, you could talk about some of those things, or you don't have to talk about all of those things. Why don't you just talk about the things that you really feel that are necessary to talk about right now? You don't, for me, actually, that kind of logic even infected me for a number of years, because I just didn't want to get involved in any of the debates, because I even if I had my view on abortion, which I'd always had, actually, even from before I was a Christian. I think I'd done RE, GCSE, and I remember we had the blessing of an evangelical teacher who eventually got streamlined from my school. But I remember him laying out the options and talking just rationally through what the process is, introducing us to the process of what actually happens in an abortion, which I don't think would happen at all schools, talking about the forceps that would come and crush the head. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like obviously immoral. Like, this is just unbelievably obviously immoral. So he wasn't coming at it from I'm a Christian and therefore this is what he was just like, this is just what happens. Here you go. Here's the process. What do you think? Do you think this is a good thing? Do you think that when they, do you think 24 weeks is here's what an embryo kind of like roughly would, I don't know if whether he gave us pictures, but he would talk about that kind of thing. This is the kind of developmental stages and things like that. And that was just like a real blessing to hear those things. I was at universities in some of those English seminars. Whenever abortion came up, because a writer had alluded to an abortion a character had in a novel or something, it was like I was completely out there. It was actually more controversial than me just talking about Jesus to an atheist. It was like, when you talk about abortion to a bunch of feminists, you're just like, no room, no opinion. You are the devil incarnate. And I just thought, again, this is just interesting. When you tread on this issue, like, all the demons come out. I feel like, rather than us shying away from it, I feel like the apostles in those situations, they go for that. They actually say, we're going to say the things that are going to bring out, not deliberately to cause trouble, to be a rabble rouser, but they're not going to shy away from it. So when Paul would speak in synagogues, someone could say, why are you being so controversial, Paul? You know that if you preach Christ in the synagogues, this is going to cause trouble. It's caused trouble for you. It's caused trouble for the whole team. We've had to, you've had to escape out of a city through a basket. So why are you causing all this trouble, Paul? Why can't you just focus on the gospel and lead a quiet life like you told us to? And I think that we just take that. We often take some of the elements that we like of what Paul says, and we don't apply it all the way. And so on abortion, like for me, I remember I remember writing a blog post even before my kind of decision to really commit to speaking on public issues more broadly. I wrote a blog post about abortion in 2017. I remember thinking, I don't know how to fit this together with my vision for how to talk about public issues. I just know that if there's one issue that I have to talk about, it has to be abortion. And I don't know whether I should also talk about the government or immigration or climate change or social justice in all these other areas. I don't know if I have to talk about that. I don't know how it fits with my theology right now. I just know that God hates this, and this is so evil. It has to be spoken about. So I'll connect the dots later if I have to. I get a really clear sense that we can't be silent on abortion. It's not acceptable to be silent on abortion. And so I think I had that kind of conviction grew, the need to speak on it. And so then when it came to me kind of go, right, I'm going systematically to like talk about these issues, abortion was among the most important ones there, really. I mean, arguably it's even more important because than the LGBT. I don't know if I could rank them. The LGBT thing's really important for a different reason. And the abortion issue is it's just the absolute stain on our age. And I just think the fact that it causes controversy to challenge it is also a kind of a tell a kind of how the enemy is working. And I just feel like if we cower back because people will have a go at us or call us an anti-feminist or say that we want to control women's bodies or stuff, those are just some of those tactics of the enemy to emotionally manipulate you into being quiet. And it is absolutely a Christian distinctive to be able to speak truth, to be the light of the world, and to speak against evil. And I think the evangelicals who've been quiet on that, I just think they really need to wake up. So I've been challenging people to do that, and I think I understand the reasons for why people might be reticent, but they need to be walked through that process perhaps, and understand and be open to changing their mind on it, because I think it is something that needs to, it really does need to change. I mean, I was at an SPUC gathering a couple of years ago, which is predominantly, it's not supposed to be Catholic, but it has majority of the SPUC grouping are Catholics. And I was there at this conference, and they heard my story, and they were all really, glad that I had challenged LGBT stuff. And then when they heard that I was pro-life and anti-abortion, they were surprised. They said, "Oh, great. I mean, are evangelicals normally pro-life?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, like most evangelicals are pro-life. They're not pro-abortion. They're not pro-choice." I was like, "Oh, good. That's really nice. I didn't know that." And I was like, it was just really interesting to hear that was their perception, that evangelicals aren't pro-life, because there's no point having a conviction that you're quiet. You go, "Oh, I'm technically pro-life." I technically don't agree with babies being legally murdered every year and it being called a moral good because it's good for women to have the choice to murder their babies or kill their babies. I know there's different language that people don't prefer on murder, but let's say, it's just, this is just crazy that this is the sense that we live in this age where that's just normal. It's been normalized, and we don't think that's an issue, but we can say that we disagree with it. It'd be just like, "Oh yeah, I don't really agree with Nazism, but I'm not going to say anything about it. I don't agree with slavery. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'll just sort of keep my conviction quiet." That's a private conviction. It's not a gospel issue, because technically it isn't, is it? You could allow slavery to carry on and keep preaching your gospel, because the slaves got preached to. Evangelists went and preached to the slaves. They didn't have to go and bring abolition. They could say that's just a social issue. "Oh, let's start talking about slavery. We're going to have to talk about climate change now, are we?" So, well, why don't you just deal with the actual issue that's in front of you? That's the thing that we're called to do prophetically. And so that's why I think, abortion is if you're going to talk about any issue in the church, if you're going to sully your gospel card, if you think it's that, I don't think it's that. I think it's an outworking of the gospel. But if you're going to dip your toe in any social issue, it better be for abortion, I think, in this age. But just because of the way it's used and the way that the freight that it has, it doesn't mean that it'll be the case in every age. It just means in this age, that's what I believe is the case. I think many people can see it that way and are waking up to that.